Hi Spartans, you're watching this video because your outline and essay work needs some work on its analysis. Watch this video for some tips on how to make your analysis even stronger. This will prepare you for your final performance task next week when you write a one-day essay on a poem of your choice. Let's look at some strong examples versus some non-examples of what strong analysis looks like. This is taken from your last checkpoint from two of your peers. Let's read the example and think about what makes it strong. The thesis says, Dennis Smith, in Not an Elegy for Mike Brown, uses allusion, strong word choice, and contrasts to make the point that although society devalues some people, everyone is human and everyone has worth. One piece of evidence this student used was your child. This is their analysis. The author uses the word child to make us remember that many of these black people who are being killed and brutalized are children. The author uses your and child to make the reader imagine what it would be like if their child was murdered and nothing came of it. It makes the reader think about what it would be like if someone was acquitted of the murder of your child because the killer said that he felt threatened because of what your child was wearing. The author uses those two words to make us remember that these people who are dying are just as human as we are. Let's check out the non-example. Thesis. In the poem Did You Think I Was a City, the poet reveals that you shouldn't give people what they want, but rather what they need. Some of their evidence was, I am not the whiskey you want, I am the water you need. Analysis. The poet is basically saying that even though you want whiskey, you need water. This can apply to other things as well. Let's think about what these did well. Here's what you want to do when you write analysis. You want to explain the connotation behind important words, images, or ideas. Connotation means the emotions or feelings associated with a word. So if we think back to the example, they use the word child. Child makes me think about innocence. Often children are innocent, they're sweet, they're little, they're human. They're essentially what makes us us. This person did a really nice job because they related the idea of child back to the idea of human, the idea of being innocent. That's what makes it so sad that so many black people are getting killed in the poem. The difference between denotation and connotation is that denotation is the dictionary definition. If you look at the non-example, this one simply says that whiskey is whiskey and water is water. We're not just talking about dictionary definitions here. When we think about the development of a theme, we want to think about the feelings or emotions associated with a word, just like connotation. You also want to explain why the literary device from Twist is important. If you think about the example, it really broke down the word choice of child, whereas the non-example just restated itself. You want to relate back, is the word choice important, is the imagery, style, tone, etc. And of course connect back to the theme. If we look back to the example, here we have a long discussion of the idea of everyone is human and everyone has worth. Even though people are being killed, they should be still treated as human. Here you just have a restatement. It says the poet is basically saying that even though you want whiskey, you need water. This is not the theme. The theme that they stated is up here. This person could have used some buzzwords to go back to the theme. When you write your analysis, make sure you're using buzzwords about your theme as well. You also want to contextualize the poem if you can. You want to think, where is it from, when is it from, and why do these matter? In Not an Elegy for Mike Brown, that was about the US and police brutality across the US. That person brought in some background knowledge, thinking about how does poem relate to current times. You may not always have this information, but it could be helpful in your analysis if you do have it. You also want to isolate particular words, phrases, or lines that are important. The strongest analysis will break down less than 5 words at a time and really dive into the connotation and denotation behind them. What are the implied meanings? What are the implied feelings? What are the emotions or ideas associated with the words? And ultimately, one trick for making strong analysis is just to use really specific verbs. There's a list here. Think about what you could use in your own writing. Some options are, this shows, this highlights, this implies, this contrasts, this compares, this emphasizes, or this illuminates. These are some strategies on how to make your analysis stronger. As you continue to watch the video, think, what are you going to use next week during your final performance task when you write a one-day essay? How will you make your analysis stronger? Let's go over some don'ts of analysis. If you think back to the non-example, that might help you out here. You don't want to summarize or reword the evidence. This would just be a 2 on the Cog Skills rubric. If you think back to the non-example, The evidence was just about water and whiskey? The analysis just said water and whiskey. You don't want to just put it in your own words. We're trying to break down the meanings behind the words and how they relate to the theme. Don't just talk about the poem in isolation. If you're just thinking, oh, this poem says this about this speaker, that's not what we're trying to do. Let's go back to the examples to get really clear on this. In the example, this relates back to the theme and talks generally about all people. The analysis here, in the non-example, just talks about the poem, about whiskey and water. You want to generalize. You want to go bigger inferences than just the poem itself. Don't just talk about the poem in isolation. Also, don't repeat yourself or be repetitive. You want to make new points and build on your points, which sometimes you use the same buzzwords. However, you don't want to just say again what the evidence says. Don't just say, this shows the theme. You don't want to assume that your reader knows how you came to your conclusions. Break it down for them by going back into the connotation, back into the literary devices, back into twist. Explain what the author's intended message is behind each move. As you finish this video, go and move to your handout and write down 3 do's of analysis, 2 don'ts of analysis, and 1 strategy you will apply for your poetry task final product next week. These tips will help you show your best work.